name is Joseph Carlson, and this is The Grief of Politics, episode 50. I had to look that up before we started filming. I'm joined by Avin Carroll. Avin, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
Well, like we talked about right before we started recording, little dread. There's a little dread in there, I told a coworker I left work and said I got to go record a political podcast, and I'm going to reward myself afterwards by not reading the news for 2 days, hopefully. So that's how I'm going to reward myself after I'm done recording this. Let me tell you, man, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if you're talking to your friends out there, but everybody I know is just kind of like, what the heck's going on? Nobody really knows what's going on, and yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of I don't know what's happening. Even from those that are in support of what's happening, they're like, "Man, it's crazy, isn't it?"
yeah. I think this episode we're going to talk about Doge. I think we have to talk about Doge and Elon Musk. I mean, it's what's happening. It seems like it's what's cluttering my newsfeed lately is people's reaction to Doge, what Doge is doing. Since this is the grief of politics, I did want to focus on things that Doge have already done that have affected people. So I tried to pull articles with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of an overview thing at the end, which I said I need your help with. A lot of talk about interest rates because,
Mm-hmm.
how is this going to be a downstream thing? Because there's this theory you probably have heard or thought the same thing. The idea that, this stuff on the edges is kind of like nobody cares about this stuff, or maybe they do, or they're not paying attention. It's when interest rates don't change,
That one.
fuel prices go up, when people are going to start going, wait a minute, what's happening? And how do we get off this train, or whatever they want to say, or whatever phrase people want to use? Or will people care? I don't know. There's also a theory that says that people just won't care, and it'll just keep happening. So, so yeah, I guess there's a couple different places we could start. What are you thinking so far about? I've said that a lot. What do you think about how Doge is going about this Department of Government Efficiency? I mean,
Oh, that Doge.
right?
That
Not
Doge.
the
Oh
meme
man, I
coin.
read all these articles on the meme coin.
Yeah,
Oh no. No, I'm just kidding.
you just skipped the ones I sent
Um,
you. Yeah,
yeah. No, no, these aren't about cryptos?
yeah. I really,
Um,
yeah. That's what we need to read about cryptos more too. That'll be. We
you
might
know,
we might have to do an episode on crypto. It just keeps coming up.
I mean, it's becoming a big part in our politics too. So it's a space
Yeah,
to be looking, right?
people
Like
have.
talk about podcasting affecting it, and a lot of podcasters are very
Of
um,
course, there. Yep.
uh, pro crypto,
Yeah.
and a lot of
Also,
these.
well, some people have approached Trump about making like having the Treasury buy crypto or invest in crypto. So
I mean, the Trump family pumped a Trump crypto like right after the election, and then dumped a whole bunch of it and
yep.
made a boatload of cash, tick
They
off a bunch of
yeah
his
they were
supporters.
they were making money on transactions as well, which for some reason I didn't know. I mean, I knew somebody was, but I didn't know they could also make money on the transaction and the sale. I was like, wow, that's really a double dip. I didn't think was possible. I'm learning a
Yeah.
little bit more about crypto, and it hurts my head. Anyway, Doge.
So Doge, right? So looking at that and where my thoughts were and are. Um, the first idea of a Department of Government Efficiency for me is one that I'm a huge fan of. As a libertarian, I definitely think that the government is way too big. They get way more in the way of our daily lives than they really honestly need to. We do need government. It is a necessary thing. I am not an anarchist. I just think that we need the least amount of government possible to still get the job done, where people aren't being abused, um,
Correct. Right.
and uh, simultaneously, like the economy can function. We can live our lives with the least amount of interference. So the idea of a Department of Government Efficiency, to me, is like a great idea. Why don't we apply some basic business principles into how we run our government? Why don't we use lean principles, Six Sigma? Why don't we improve these processes, procurement processes? Like government is so obscenely slow in bureaucracy, and anyone who's had to use its services, left or right of the aisle, understands that it is cumbersome and wasteful and just illogical and irrational so much of the time. But as we've seen in practice, what's going on with Doge is I'm going after things I don't like that are my pet peeves. And when I say I mean
Elon.
Musk.
Yeah, what are you
Um,
doing with the
I,
government, Evan? What's going on with you? What kind of contracts you got going?
he's going after things that are pet peeves of his own. He's only sharing information that paints Democrats and liberals in a bad light, and I 100% am sure that Republicans have been messing up the government for decades just as much as Democrats have. There's just as much pork in their laws as there is in Democratic bills.
Well, what I've heard
Um,
from journalists that I enjoy that are kind of like,
mm,
center, they're like, these charts and things that they're reading, they're not reading them correctly. Like there's a way that you look at these and say, no, this went to this went to this. Okay, so
mm,
this went to this, and they're just saying, look at all this. They're looking at the total and not like, many people pointed out this group of money went to this organization, and then that organization divvied the money up between different projects. Now you could
right.
say like,
There's that too, but let me finish my thesis here, Jeff.
all right,
So what's happening with Doge and what I'm seeing is what I was hoping for was an organized examination of government entities, businesses, or not businesses, but like government offices, government agencies, and then going through and eliminating waste, eliminating extra overhead, and streamlining processes and systems so that it functions better. What we're seeing is uh, shotgun method. They're not looking at anything in advance. They're going into an agency, they're pulling the data, they're firing everyone before they even know what people do, and like massive amount of harm is being done. You didn't have it in one of your articles, but we talked about it earlier in the week. They went into the organization that oversees our nuclear weapons and codes and got rid of everyone. And then people were like, we oversee the nuclear weapons and codes, and then they
yeah.
were like, "Oh yeah, you guys are hired back."
I heard
Like they don't even know what they're doing.
yeah, I heard
This is the college graduate with a business degree who gets a job at
literally,
some big business and goes in and reads a report and says, "Oh, this whole department's not necessary," without any understanding of how it functions, and
yeah,
then years later has to fix it. And I specifically think of the example where some VP fired all of the software testers at Microsoft many years ago, and then said, "Oh, well, our developers can test their own code. We don't need someone else to test it." They got rid of all their testing stuff that the testing department had, all the pre-written codes, all the tools, everything they had. And then all of a sudden we start getting Microsoft products with bugs constantly, and they're constantly having to fix stuff. And they had to rebuild testing from the ground up because someone looked at a spreadsheet but didn't actually go talk to the people on the ground level and ask them, "What do you do?"
well, what they're doing now is, I mean, like literally, you're saying it seems like it is college people that just got out of college or maybe didn't finish college, and there is some reports
What we're
of,
hearing, right? I mean, I don't know. The only reporting I'm hearing that's saying that, of course, is
well, there was
all
two.
of the stuff that's like critical of Musk.
Well,
So I
there
don't I don't know if it's true or not.
Well, there was two. I think there's one guy that's. I mean, they showed his team on like Fox News and CNN, whatever. But there was one person that was a little bit older. But there was two people that are like kind of in the news a lot. One of them wrote a bunch of racist stuff, and
Yeah,
was
yeah,
let
yeah.
go and then came back. Anyway, another they. I actually
And
saw.
I thought they proposed that he would come back, but then
Oh,
like people were like, "No."
I think. Well, no. JD Vance was like, you should bring him back, and it's like you let him go. Like if you want him back, just whatever. Anyway, that's a whole nother. I could go on a 20-minute thing, but I've seen interviews with people in these departments where they're like
Yeah,
you understand that like it's literally like Office Space where they put us in a room, and these people that are 21 years old are like, what do you do here? And they're like, I've been here 10 years, and they have no idea like the scope of our job, or even if we're redundant, they have no idea. And then they're like, okay, and then you get locked out of your email, and then it's like, okay, I guess I'm fired.
right.
It's like,
Like I said, it's completely haphazard. They don't know what they're doing. They haven't had time to parse the data, to understand the systems and processes to improve them. This is, and I've told you this before, right? This is them trying to close as much stuff as possible before the courts can fully stop them, or before Congress can realize how much damage they're actually doing and
Yeah.
stopping them.
Well, I mean,
Right? It reminds me of Malay.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna look for Congress for. They've kind of just been opening up that door to all of Trump's nominations. So it's like, are they really gonna step up and say this is unacceptable? Like they're just tweeting right now. I mean, whatever you're gonna say about the
No one
Democrats.
in our Congress right now has a spine.
Yeah, I mean, even the Democrats. It's like you could say what you will
Wait,
about.
wait, wait. McConnell,
Oh yeah.
who has nothing to lose at this point, did vote no. But
I
like, there's nothing to
honestly,
lose.
I don't want to. I don't want to sound disparaging to McConnell. I can't believe he's still alive because he just took that fall again. He like fell down the stairs again, and they're like, "Yeah, he's still voting." I'm like, "What? Go home! Like, what are you doing, man?" Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way as you. It's like, what's going on? Like, it's one thing. Like you, hey, we. Everybody thought when this first started that it was going to be like a blue ribbon committee where Musk goes in with some people. They're like, here's the ledger. We found so much in the red. We need to get rid of this. This can be downsized. And then Trump would promptly take that, throw that in the garbage and go, hey, you have a nice day. But this has turned into so much more, and it's,
Actually, I honestly don't think it's turned into more. I think it's turned into less.
oh, yeah,
They're not doing any review.
yeah.
They're like, they don't have time to pull data to fire people. They're literally just going in and saying fire everybody.
Yeah, everybody's banding about that old Silicon Valley saying that move fast, break stuff.
I mean, that's what they're doing.
I mean, I just
The problem is the things that they're breaking are responsible for large swaths of our population's lives.
yeah, like the first article I
The,
did.
the,
Go
the
ahead.
Valentine's Day Massacre article that you shared.
About the veterans group and all that. That they had a lot more
Yeah.
groups in there, but the veteran one was like crazy. It's like why?
Specifically, they're talking like this particular. Okay, so we'll highlight one of the articles.
Yeah, here let me
And
see if
we'll
I
start
could.
there. So it's a
Oh,
Rolling
right
Stone
here.
article. It was published on Valentine's Day.
Yep.
Written by Michael Embrich. And it is titled Trump and Musk's Valentine's Day Massacre of Military Veterans. And this article specifically focuses on how a third of government employees are veterans because they get preferential treatment for hiring. And
Right.
so you come back after serving your country and you transition to the private sector. And where do most of these people go? They either go to a government contractor or they go to work for the government because they get preferential treatment in hiring into those places. And they're getting fired and laid off just as much as anybody else. So, like, the pro veteran, pro military Republican right is just indiscriminately firing veterans.
One thing that I thought was interesting about this too is they also not only let those people go, but I'm going to see if I can right here.
And all of a sudden, Joe, do you turn off your light or something?
No, I have no lights on in here, and it's just using the light from the article, and this is a black screen. So,
Oh, gotcha.
but right here, so for there's a governor and how many people can be hired, and it says for every 4 employees who leave, only 1 can be replaced, and they're already
Yeah, that's one
understaffed.
of Trump's directives on
Yeah.
this, yeah.
So it's like
Was it Trump or Musk directive?
I think it says Trump's executive order here.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It also, from what I've been hearing from some of the reports, is not only is it probationary period people they're letting go, but if you accept a promotion, the moment you work up to that new promotion level, you're considered probationary because you're in a new role. And so many people are not taking the promotions, which is another way to, I guess, save money, I suppose. Yeah. So
Yeah, so they specifically the Department of Veterans Affairs, they fired, dismissed a whole bunch of people, and it was on the 13th, so the day before Valentine's Day.
right.
Um, and it was like anyone who was on a probationary period was immediately let go. Anyone who had a new job offer was immediately had their offer rescinded.
Right.
And so one of the things they talked about is like, hey, you've worked. They outline this hypothetical, like you've worked for this agency for 10 years, you've worked your way up, and now you've been offered this promotion, so you take the promotion. Yes, there's a probationary period on it, but you've been there for 10 years, you know you're going to do a good job, so you take it anyway. And then boom, you're on a probationary period because you took a promotion, and now you've been let go.
Right.
It's utterly, absolutely, and entirely indiscriminate. There is no professionalism. There is no care. This is, we have to tear down as much as we can before we're stopped. My friend I was speaking with earlier, one of the things he brought up was, because I brought up before the courts can stop them, and he said, yeah, and most likely in 2 years they're going to lose the House and the Senate too.
Right.
And that is very true. Most likely in 2 years they're going to, because there is no plan. This is just gut it, gut everything, get rid of as much as we can possibly get rid of.
Yeah.
And it's going to cause absolute chaos in society because no one's going to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I sent you was, I care about the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but also like they talk about how many investigations. Like this was an organization that was investigating Musk.
They weren't investigating Musk. They were going to be responsible for oversight of X's new payment platform.
Right. But if you get rid of it, you don't have to worry about that, right? Like, it's pretty crazy.
Well, that portion of it. There's still going to be other oversight, but now the CFPB won't be watching over what they're doing. And let's remember why the CFPB exists.
It was after the
It was
crash.
created in 2008,
Yep.
after the market crash, because for decades we've been rolling back and rolling back and rolling back oversight rules and regulations on the banks. And what did they do? They came out with ridiculous loan programs and then went out and told people, yeah, you can get a loan for this. Like, don't worry about it. No, income doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, you don't even need to prove to us you have a job. You can go buy a house.
Yeah, they didn't. I heard it. Maybe it was from The Big Short. There was this term called the ninja loan. No income, no job.
Legitimate thing.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, back then I had a very brief stint where I had a full-time job, but I was also like trying to break into the mortgage world, so I would like part-time work. And the people I worked with only positioned those for self-employed people
No.
where it's difficult to prove your income,
Yeah.
and would be like, look, like as long as you know you can afford it, this is the way we can go. The interest rate's going to be higher, so it's more expensive, but it allows you to still be able to buy.
Right.
The problem is, and The Big Short highlighted this really well, was people who get paid on commission sometimes have a financial interest in not being fully honest about the risks or
and pushing
pointing those risks out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say, like, I saw different figures for the CFPB and what they've given back to consumers, but it is within the billions of dollars that they've returned to people for, because they do, like, late fees with banks. If your bank tries to charge you overdraft fees, they'll go after the bank. They do credit card fees. And I've heard that it's actually, everybody talks about government waste, but I've heard different figures. Again, I couldn't pull them up because I heard tons of different figures. But the consensus kind of was with the CFPB, is what I've heard, is that it actually is a return on investment. Their department cost X amount of dollars to run, then we return this to regular people. So we spend $4 billion on it. They give consumers back $21 billion or whatever. It's worth it. So like, there's no reason to shutter it. It's doing, if you want to run it like a business, it's doing what it should be doing, right? It's, the overhead is low. It's, it's looking out. And so it is, yeah, it is, it is, I don't know, strange is the right word, but it's just, I mean, it is, I'll say this again, it's not that I'm excited that the Democrats are doing really nothing, but it is kind of amazing that the Republicans who are in charge are really just like, you don't really hear much from them either. Like, again, there's some tweets. I think his name is Cassidy from Louisiana, was like, I don't know if we should be letting these veterans go. You're like, that's it? That's all we're doing? You're not going to get on the floor with the microphone?
No, they've got to put up a token resistance, and they're going to let Trump do what Trump wants to do. None of them wants to stand up.
It's
none of them.
Yeah,
because for some reason there's this delusion within the Republican Party, like they're all listening to Papa Trump, and not looking at the actual numbers. He's got a mandate. All Americans want him to do this. This is the thing we're going for. Charge the hill. But guys, like, he didn't even win 50% of Americans.
Yeah, he didn't. It's not a mandate.
Like, he's one of the very few presidents who hasn't won at least 50% of the vote.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, hey, you can if he won like 75% of the popular vote, I'd be like, well,
Yeah,
I guess I got to shut up and deal
right.
with it, because this is what he. Oh, camera went off. Ah, it's fine. He'll turn his camera back on. Um, I'm gonna write that down though. Oh, there you go. I don't know. It just. Oh, Matt. Oh, you're back. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like you said at the beginning. This isn't anywhere near the right way to go about it. And if you I'm reading a book right now I'm going to give to you when I'm done. It's called Burn Book, A Tech Love Story. It's written by a journalist called Kara Swisher. Through her career that in the mid 90s she started, she's interviewed every tech person. And from Bezos to Andreessen to Musk, Zuckerberg, and like this idea, they were all sitting there on the dais, at the inauguration, and it looks bad, right? Because they were sitting in front of the lawmakers, so that looks really bad. And she does talk about this idea of like, yeah, this is what they do. They come in, and they literally, they move fast, they break things, and every interview I've heard with her, they're like, well, these people, aren't they afraid? She goes, they don't care about it. Like, they're not afraid of anything because uh, it didn't matter when they
They've been
were.
surrounded their whole life by everyone who says they're so smart and so brilliant,
Yep.
and they've built these giant empires, so they've got these like self-reaffirming bubbles around them that tells them that what they do is effective and right. They
Mm.
don't have anyone telling them no. And so yeah, of course they feel like they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's so there needs to be uh, a check. Now, I've heard some scuttlebutt about there's going to be a budget vote in March. So maybe that's when Democrats step up and say, because we have to check Elon somehow. Somebody's got to do it, right? So no matter what he tweets out about the budget, it's like, well, we have to do the opposite of whatever he tweets, right? Like, or we have to fight him somehow. And I don't, and I guess that's good. And like you said, they may lose the House and the Senate in 26. But I think,
2 years
yeah,
is a long time.
it is like, what are we in? We're in year one right now, right? Oh no, it's only been a month. Okay, well, good, 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 good. It's yeah, man, and again,
Coming
there's
up on the 1 month anniversary here soon.
yeah, there is the flashing red light of the what happens if he disobeys the courts. JD Vance has already said, it'd be unlawful for them to basically interfere with what we want to do. Um,
Right. The guy who graduated from Yale Law School thinks that courts doing their jobs is unlawful.
yeah, I guess he didn't like Yale Law School. He wasn't a fan of like the process. Um, I
No, he's just not going to stay. Like, he's not happy with how it's fighting him at the moment, so it's bad. And it was a good thing when it was slowing down all of the trials and everything that were coming up against Trump.
yeah,
Although most of that went against him anyway, but he won, and so it all got dropped.
yeah,
So,
it does seem to, I mean, to get into like the nuts and bolts of this, like behind the scenes, for all those, again, to go back to all those people sitting behind Trump at the inauguration, it does really seem back when I read a little bit about the inauguration. It did seem, I mean, obviously all these people want money and power, and that's fine. I mean, whatever.
mhm.
All these people. But I think what it was they really started to get pushback from like the Biden administration. They were like, well, we're going to, the CFPB is going after you, the FTC is going after you. What are you going to do? But we want to, the government, basically, some people went to them and said, well, we want AI to be regulated or whatever. And there was a quote by Mark Andreessen and his people where he's like, well, forget that, basically, And so then they go to Trump. It's like, oh my God, I got to say, though, I just watched an interview. I was value tamed today, Avin. I got to tell you that with PBD.
Oh,
Glenn Beck
okay.
Glenn Beck was on there, and he looks really weird without a whiteboard behind him. Let me tell you that much. Uh, but they did talk about AI and stuff, but I thought it was so weird because it was a recent episode, but they did not talk about DeepSeek at all. And they kept talking about how we need to be number one and we need to do this. And I was like, are they not going to bring up DeepSeek? I mean, they dropped that like about the same time that the episode dropped, so that's crazy. Anyway, I
May not have had time to actually respond. Also, you have to look at when they recorded it, so it's hard to say.
yeah, I don't know. That's true too. But I was like, man, they're really not bringing up like the biggest thing that you could do. Apparently, you could do everything they did for like a quarter of the power and money. So, all right. So, Avin, what are your right leaning friends saying about an unelected billionaire running everything? Are they saying anything at all? Is anybody peeping? Because on the left, it's kind of a thing, right? Or like, wait, we didn't vote for that guy.
So, you're familiar with the concept of grooming, right?
I take my dog's grooming twice a year. No, yes, I know what
No,
you're.
no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They give them a
Yeah.
bath. They look
So,
adorable.
I've been looking for the right word to describe this, right? And so we talk about sexual predators grooming their targets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think what's happened is the conservative base has been groomed to suddenly hate all of these agencies. And I think most people, because of cognitive dissonance and how the brain works, even though they wouldn't have agreed with any of this 5, maybe 10 years ago, now all of them are like, no, all these agencies are bad. And, I don't necessarily like that it's, this billionaire going after it, right? But I still think it needs to happen. And if we wait, if we try to do it the right way, it's just never gonna happen. So, you just gotta break a few eggs.
How? Oh
Now I'm ad-libbing, but
no, no,
that's sort
yeah.
of the feel that I get from people.
How much of it is owning
Uh,
us libs? Us squishy libs that are mad about all this.
I don't know that, and maybe, but I don't know that owning the libs is a motivation of Musk. Maybe in some way it is. I 100% think that's a large motivator for Trump. And it's disappointing that our
Yes, it is.
president
It
is
is.
out there intentionally trying to get retribution on half of the Americans that he represents as president, because that he's responsible to lead as
Yeah.
president. Um, but
I
I don't know if that's a motivation for Musk. Again, I think Musk is just, I'm going to tear down all the government agencies I can as fast as possible. And I'm watching this thinking, wow, this kind of reminds me of Malay.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I think that's a big motivator for
you,
him. I
you
honestly do. I think he watched what Malay did in Argentina last year, and he was like, I'm going to do the same thing.
well, Malay, it wasn't all roses, right? Like over half the
Nope.
population's in poverty. Apparently, I just heard right before we recorded that Malay did a pump and dump of some kind of Bitcoin on his followers. I don't know what happened, but he did that. I just heard that as like a somebody reading a headline. So good, 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 good. I'm excited. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was this Yahoo Finance article about interest rates. Now
Yes.
here's my whole thing with this. One, I'm stupid. I need your help breaking this down. But also,
You're not stupid, Joe.
after I read this, my wife and I, we always talk about our plans in here. We're like, oh, we're gonna move this year and whatever. And I read this and I go, maybe 26 will be the year we shoot for. At least right now, everything's a little nuts. But reading all this stuff, this is where I think the rubber is going to meet the road with all this kind of Doge stuff. Again, all this stuff's on the periphery. I hate to say it, but normal people don't care about, they don't care about the veterans getting fired. They don't care about the nuclear people getting fired.
Veterans are normal people, Joe, and they really do care.
They care, but I'm saying the voters, the civvy voters are like, oh, it's waste, fraud, and abuse. He can do whatever he wants. But I think this is where stuff goes of like, I saw this interview with Trump that he posted on social media, interest rates should be lowered. This is an article from Yahoo Finance that came out on February 14th on Valentine's Day. It's by Rick Newman, and it says, Newman, Trump's biggest economic vulnerability has emerged. I also saw a thing with Trump where he just complained about the Fed, about Jerome Powell. These interest rates should be lower. What's going on? And Jerome Powell has been very tight-lipped about Trump. He doesn't give him quarter. He's like, they're like, are you going to fire Jerome Powell? And Trump's like, yeah, I'll look into it. And Jerome Powell's like, he doesn't have the ability to do that. Like, I'm moving on. Like it doesn't.
And he's backed off on that too. Trump has backed off on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so now, like,
Unless he's
everybody
back on.
everybody keeps talking about egg prices, but it's all prices have slowly started to tick up. This is where
Gas is
people,
going up again.
yeah, this is where people are going to be
Gas is
like,
up 20 cents a gallon at my local gas station.
when I was out of town for
Did I go
work.
put a sticker out there with Trump next to it pointing out it says
Yeah.
I did that?
Oh yeah, because they got the Biden ones. They had the Biden ones that did
Right,
that.
right. Because that's how economies work.
That's how economies work. I gotta say though, that if this like I'll give like I'm I'll be honest, I'll give Trump a little bit because he just got in office. It hasn't really been a month yet, but like
Exactly.
that's what he campaigned on. So I'd give him till like I'd say March, whatever, to be like, hey, it's been a couple months. You did sign an executive order to have people look into prices of things. Are they? Are they going to go down? The thing with car loans they talk about in this, the treasury bonds are going up, so mortgage rates are going to be higher. Like all this stuff is going to be affected. So people are really going to start looking around going, wait a minute. I thought we wanted Trump because he was going to lower all this stuff, and he's not,
Right.
he's not doing that. So
Right.
this is where I think the metal meets the road of this stuff. So,
Um,
and tariffs, we
yeah.
haven't even talked about tariffs. If he decides to go forward with tariffs or not, how's that going to work? You know?
I mean, we are going forward with some tariffs.
Right.
The blanket 10% on Chinese goods, and the 25% on foreign steel and aluminum.
Well, then they're just going to tariff us, and that's what's happened. So it's like this game of like, okay, fine, you tariff me, I tariff you. It's like, how does that help anybody? How does that work? I don't get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like,
It'd be one thing if we were, negotiating with our friends and allies and being strategic with how we're applying these as opposed to just, I'm going to be big bad bully on the block and I'm going to swing the biggest hammer I have at everyone.
right.
And so that's from a geopolitical standpoint, that's where I'm disappointed, right? I know a lot of people are pointing out, like, well, it's getting results, right? Because Mexico's enforcing the border more, and we're going to talk about this more, and Canada's doing more to stop, import of these chemicals, and they're going to watch their border better, and like, this is what we wanted, this is working. But I'm watching it going, right, so the immediate benefit, short term, might look good, but now we have soured this relationship way longer, right? And there's all the pictures in Canada of them putting up like "Buy Canadian, American liquor not sold here," right? Like, what are the long-term ramifications of
the
this?
booing at the hockey games? I've seen those clips.
Yeah,
Where I'm like, well, we deserve it. Like you said, the idea that I know Trump has never been subtle, but the idea to immediately, like you said, instead of reaching out, going, hey, can we talk about this? We're really getting screwed on beef. Like.
Right.
Hey, we'll bring fuel, or like, we're really getting screwed on fuel. We'll bring beef prices down if you could do something
And
about the
when
fuel.
he was president the first time, right, we had renegotiated. We got rid of NAFTA, or like kneecapped NAFTA, and created a new trade deal
Right.
between the United States, Canada, and Mexico that was what Trump wanted. And now they're just totally throwing that out.
Yeah, it's so weird. And then I again, to kind of go a little bit off subject, but I just heard that he's kind of reaching out to Iran, and he may sign another nuclear deal because he looks at it as like a legacy thing. It's like, well, you ripped up the first one and left the first deal, but now you're looking at like, oh, I could get a Nobel Peace Prize, so why don't I try to? It's like there's no, like, he is truly like, you can come after me, Avin. I'll let you come after me. He truly does come into this stuff like a toddler sometimes, of like, I'm gonna punch him and then see what happens, and then cry, and then we're gonna get what we want anyway, because like a lot of people pointed out, these concessions with China or Canada,
Treating it like real estate deals. He's coming at it hard and fast to make as much money as he possibly can. He's beating up his opponent as hard as he can do it, right? I'm going to hit them as hard as I can, as fast as I can, and make them succumb to my will.
right?
And this isn't a real estate deal, right? This isn't the only time you're dealing with this person. This is ongoing relationships.
This
that
is
go on for years and years and years. And
This
years.
is literally a marriage.
Right?
You're
This isn't a one-off negotiated contract, right? This isn't I'm buying a car from this salesperson who won't work at that dealership in 6 years when I buy a new car.
yeah. No, that's the thing. It's like
don't-
yeah.
Right. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. So like the interest rate thing, like this particular article is actually really really good. It opened
That's
my
why.
eyes to a few different perspectives I hadn't actually seen. It's a
Yeah.
Yahoo Finance article, so it's coming from a more neutral standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, he the author,
Newman.
what's his name? Rick
Rick Newman.
uh, Newman.
Ricky. I
He
probably.
does a good job of explaining kind of the basics of how these systems have worked and do work, of explaining why Trump is really frustrated. And since this article came out, actually, it might have even been he might have written this after it had happened. I think he did. Um, we had new consumer price index
Oh, really?
come out last week, and inflation came in higher than expected, and so everyone's kind
Great.
of like, "Oh crap, what's going to happen?" And so Trump's out here beating the drum: lower rates, lower rates, lower rates. We need lower rates, but interest rate or inflation's still high, and the
Right.
Fed's not going to cut rates while inflation's still high. And so instead of it trickling down, which is why they started cutting rates, like, okay, we've got a trajectory, we're moving towards 2%. We'll start backing off the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, isn't it double
But
where it should be? If I read this right, it's like it's
it's
usually
double where it was when he was in office before.
so they said usually like 2.5 is like the sweet spot, right? For like all that stuff, and like now it's at like 4. Am I reading that right, or was I reading that wrong?
Inflation's target is 2%. The Fed wants the average inflation over several years to be at 2%. Up or down a little bit, they're okay with that. What you're talking about is the 10-year Treasury rate.
Ah,
And the
yes.
10-year Treasury rate,
Was it?
Capital Economists, Capital Economics, which is a publication, I'm assuming, says the 10-year Treasury could hit 4.75 if Trump's tariff war ends up being worse than markets expect. Right now, it's about. Oh no,
4.5, I think.
that's not where it's at. I'll come back to it in a second. Some strategists think it could top 5%, with most other consumer and business rates rising accordingly. The 10-year Treasury is sitting at around 4.5 for the next 2 years, is kind of where they're forecasting it,
Yeah, that's I
which
saw it.
means mortgage interest rates, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is going to sit around that 7% range,
Great.
which is where we're at right now, and that's not good. So they also then go on during his first term, prior to COVID, the 10-year Treasury averaged just 2.42. So before everything went into
Off.
the basement during
Right. Yeah, during
COVID.
COVID.
And even then, Trump complained that rates were too high. Rates are now nearly double those levels. Mortgage rates, currently around 7%, are near historic averages, yet nearly 3 points higher than Trump's first term.
Yeah.
Historic averages are somewhere between 5 and 7%. The problem is when interest rates collapsed. Um, the general rule for home prices is for every 1% in mortgage rate drop, you see a 10% increase in prices.
Yeah. I remember
But
that.
when interest rates went back up, home prices didn't come down 10% per point.
Right.
So, and the reason for that is there's the demand all dried up.
Right.
So, well, and the supply, because everyone got these super cheap rates and no one's selling. Right? We've talked about that before.
Yeah, the golden
So all of
handcuffs.
this,
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing he outlined in here, though, to me that was super super interesting was like, um, if Trump gets his way and restricts interest rates that banks can charge as a way of getting rates lower,
Mm-hmm.
then what's going to happen is banks are then going to restrict how much lending they do. They're going to move their money into other places.
Oh,
So it's actually going to dry up money and slow the economy down because people are going to not be able to access credit,
right.
which you personally experienced in the financial crisis in 2008 9.
Mm-hmm. I did. I also remember when that happened. I mean, before I bought my house, I remember it was that thing where I had a credit card.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's the only time I've ever experienced that where I had a credit card, I paid, I had a limit, And then I went to get like a TV for $1,000, and like, you don't have any money on this card. And I was like, I'm sorry. And they're like, yeah, the banks have just cut everybody off. I'm like, what? But I pay on time. And they're like, doesn't matter. I'm like, all right, well,
Yeah.
welcome to the
Well,
economy.
didn't they like drop your average by like 80 or your allowable limit by like 80% or something?
I had, if I remember right, I was dumb and I bought a really expensive Mac. Don't do that, by the way. It was like thousands of dollars. I want to say 3 grand. We'll say
Oh,
three.
wow.
We'll say 3 grand. I did the thing I shouldn't have done. I'm a little bit more savvy with that now. Um, Spent 3 grand, paid it off, had the limit, so it's 3 grand. Then went to get a TV for $1,000, and like I don't know, 6 months later, and they said you only have a limit of $500 on this card. And I was like,
Mm.
what? And he's like, yeah, they've cut everybody off. They've stripped everybody of their. I was like, yeah, but like I pay on time. And he's like, doesn't matter. We've had a lot of people come in and say the same thing, that they had a card that had a limit. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not getting that TV today. I guess it ain't happening. So, um, so what do you think? I mean, we're kind of closing out at the end here. I mean, are you kind of with me where you think like this is where the rubber is going to meet the road with these interest rates and these mortgage rates, and like you said, gas prices are going up. Everybody's got the memes of the egg prices. I saw somebody online post a picture of eggs, like a carton had fell over and broke, and they were like, "This literally just happened when I came back from the store. I'm almost on my knees crying." Because they dropped like one of those 18 count things of eggs. Like it was like,
I
oh,
mean,
I was like, oh no, that's like,
so
I saw the Valentine's Day memes of get someone that you love, something they care about. And it was a carton of eggs, stuff like that. I thought it was pretty good.
um the last several weeks Lisa's been grocery shopping and hasn't been able to find eggs at Costco. We've been able to get them still, but not at Costco.
Right.
And because both of us were off today for President's Day, uh, she went today and they had eggs. She
Oh my
came home.
gosh.
She was like, "They had eggs at Costco."
Oh my gosh.
But
Yeah.
right, I think this is right. That this is Trump's Achilles heel. This is why supposedly this is why people elected him. They thought he would do a better job of keeping things more affordable. Um, they didn't, roughly summarizing the broad strokes of the American people that voted for Trump didn't trust that Kamala was going to be able to handle the economy. Um,
Yeah.
I should say the swing voters that voted for Trump didn't think that Kamala Harris was going to be able to handle the economy as well, and it
Didn't
wasn't going as well as they would
she?
like it.
She wasn't savvy
And
enough for anybody. Yeah.
and the economy where it's going is going to be a big deal for Trump, right? Like I read another article this week, and it came back to the same quote that we kept hearing during the election. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah. I do. You know who said that originally? I had to look it up. It was James Carville when he was working with Clinton.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
guess he said that to everybody. Like they'd go on the road and they'd do door knocking. And he's like, just tell everybody it's the economy, stupid. Just knock on their doors and say it's the economy. Like all that. Like, it's true. I mean, I think I've said this before, but I think this bleeds into a lot of other stuff too. Because if people are doing well and can like provide, that you kind of are able to tune out a lot of noise. Like the DOGE stuff, you're able
Yeah.
to tune out. But now everybody's kind of on pins and needles because you're waiting on bated breath for good news. And I think I'm just like you. I think this will hurt him. Like if he can't get this under control by, let's say, May, like if this stuff still keeps ticking up into May, it's bad news bears for, I think, Republicans. And I think what'll be a test will be the tax cut he wants to extend, because even conservative economists are like, well, that's inflationary. So like that's going to add to the deficit. So if you do that and these aren't going down, one, how will the markets respond? And then two, how are people going to respond? How are the voters going to respond when they're like, hey man, you said it was going to go down. It's slowly ticking up. You passed this tax bill, which apparently there are some Republicans who are not excited about the extending the tax thing. What's his name? I want to say Roy Cohn, but that's not it. Actually, Glenn Beck interviewed him because he actually stood up at that first budget fight they had with Elon and disagreed with Elon and the president. And Glenn Beck had him on, and I read the transcript, and man, even the transcript was awkward because it seems like neither of them wanted to be in the room talking about Elon or anything that was happening. Anyway, there might be some Republicans that step forward and say we can't just rubber stamp this budget through, this extension of the tax cuts. We have to do something. We have to find some other way to cut whatever. And one thing that I didn't bring up that I want to bring up before we stop recording is if DOGE touches Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, if those checks start getting frozen or don't make it to people, that is also going to be like we've crossed the Rubicon. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's one thing, I'm not trying to be cruel, but I'm saying this stuff, unless you're really plugged in, you're not reading about these veterans people being fired. You're not reading about the nuclear people.
Um,
But if your check,
Medicaid's in the Republican budget, and right before the election, Trump said he was going to protect Medicaid because a lot of his supporters use Medicaid. So, you know,
I think Social Security
we'll
is
see what
another
goes.
thing. I heard a Republican
Yep.
talking about what is the term? It's
Austerity.
no, Social Security is something that just gets paid because people pay into it and it automatically goes out. There's whatever they talked about. It's like automatic. Like we need to look at this automatic whatever, and it's like, oh, you're talking about Social Security because it just gets paid. There isn't a budget in Congress that sets Social Security. It just goes out, right? And they're like, we really
Right.
need to look at this spending. And it's like, if you start touching that, that is such, to me, in my opinion, a red line where people are going to be like, okay, so gas prices aren't down. I hate to say it, but groceries are up. My mortgage rate hasn't gone down. I can't. I was thinking of moving. I can't. Now you're telling me my mother or grandmother can't get their Social Security. Medicaid, Medicare now being frozen. Like, what's going on? That's I think going to be the big turning point for people when they're like, we're done here. Because I know people that came up to me after he got elected and were like, yeah, the economy was pretty good when he left office. That's what I want. And you're like, okay, well, we'll see. We'll see if that happens.
Right. And that's what people want. They want the economy to go back to kind of how it was. Um, the economy wasn't terrible in 2016 through 2019. Um, his last year in office, the economy collapsed at the beginning of COVID and then went berserk as everyone started getting extra money. We all started working from home. No one could go into the office. All the stimulus checks came out. And for those who needed it because they didn't have means of making money, right? It was a lifeline for people who couldn't go to work but like needed to actually leave the house to work but
Yeah.
couldn't. It was catastrophic. But for all of those Americans who could pivot to work from home, all that stimulus money was just injected straight back in the economy. It went into savings, it went into investments, it went into
Equipment.
um,
People bought equipment to work from home. A lot of electronics.
right
You're like, yeah.
furniture,
Mm-hmm.
right, and so all of that was inflationary. It all went into the economy. The thing that I found absolutely hilarious about Republicans blaming Biden for inflation was 2020 was when all that money got put into the circulation. And the
Mm-hmm.
way we measure inflation is a full year after.
Right.
So 2020, all that money's going in. 2021, Biden upheld a lot of that stuff. He did put more money in some areas, but we start seeing really bad inflation towards the end of 2021 as we go into 2022.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, wait, this is oh, we got to slow down." And then
Yeah.
it starts to slow down. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Trump had to do it. I just I detest that our politicians can't be honest about this. Like, I think the more sad thing for me is that we as Americans don't see it. Like individually we do, but collectively we just are blind to it.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
I went off
No,
the
you're
trail
fine.
there.
No, I mean, I know during COVID, there what luckily I had savings, and something happened with the stimulus and unemployment and all that, and I was able to use savings. But then I got my money like right after I started working again, so I was able to put money back in savings, and I was thankful for the money because obviously it's like, well, I'm draining my savings here, like I want to put something back in there, and I did. It was great. And Biden even admitted, he's like, man, I should have put my name on them checks, which it's like, yeah, stupid. You should have put your name on them checks because people would have been like, oh, Biden gave me the money. Well, Evan, is
Yeah.
there anything you want to plug before we leave? It's been a really great episode this week.
Um,
I gotta
you
really
know,
excited.
like usual, I'll point people towards my YouTube channel. Haven't put anything up in a while, but a lot of the information that there is still useful. It's Your Agent Guide on YouTube. On my website, youragentguide.com. Nothing really useful there. You can reach me if you're interested in, help getting a real estate agent, finding someone that's good and qualified in your area. I can be contacted through the website. Um,
Are your tips still going out? Like on social media, you get those tips every once in a while?
yep. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, Your Agent Guide. Um,
I need to get on the gram. I need to be a young kid
uh,
and get on Instagram.
every day but Sunday. There's just a little tip or update on where the market is kind of broadly. It's more of like a general update.
Yeah, I like the tips. I get that's I need to get on the gram. My wife keeps telling me I need to get on the Instagram. I'm not on the gram yet. I'm scared of TikTok. I feel that I'm too old for TikTok, but I know people that are on TikTok that are my age, so I don't know what I'm freaking out about. I
The
guess
ban.
I guess it's
I'm
part
a
of.
weirdo. I think the ban should have stuck, but that's just me.
Well, it's my thing is like I guess the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. The idea that Facebook is stealing my data feels better to me than the People's Republic of China. I guess I don't know. Like it just feels like they're all scraping it, but I guess well because I
Yeah.
don't know if I trust Zuckerberg anyway. Yeah, I mean I'm just working on what I normally work on. We got the D&D podcast usually comes out every week, but I was out of town. So we missed a week, but you do get an episode. It actually just went up as we're recording this on Monday this morning. We did an Elden Ring one shot, and I still do reviews, and I had to push those back. I'm trying to do one a month, video game reviews. It'll come March 1st because I was out of town. The game I'm playing is a little bit shorter, but obviously I should have thought that I thought I was only going to be out of town for a couple days, and my trip got extended, so it kind of cut into my review time. But you and I, we will. There's a couple strategy games I'm looking at that I'm hoping that you can beat me at, and so I'm trying to decide which one I want to play, so you can beat me fair and square. We'll probably talk about that on a pod. So yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, Evan. Like I said, maybe to just take a break from the general cast. Maybe we will talk about crypto because it seems to be coming up quite a bit in the news. And like I said, it seems like a lot of these Sam Altman and Andreessen people are like, hey, what if we just had the Treasury underwrite all of our bad crypto decisions? And it's like, what could possibly go wrong, as the Simpsons would say? It just sounds terrible. So we'll see everybody next month, and try to stay sane. Watch a comedy or something. I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah, look at the sun. Of course, we're in Washington, so there's no sun for like another week. So we're screwed. I got to get a sunlight or
Don't
something.
look at the sun, folks, in
Yeah.
its general direction, not directly.
I meant,
Try to make
figuratively.
people blind,
Yeah,
Joe.
maybe touch grass. I don't know. All right, we'll see everybody next month.